I've turned my phone on to Silencio.
Mine's silent and it's over there.
Oh, well,
You can...
I don't need that. I haven't got any notes. I can pretend I have notes. Mm-hmm. I want to talk this evening on 50 and Coping. Good evening, by the way. About relationships. Mm-hmm. Now, that's a very broad title.
It is.
But look, I've been thinking about relationships because I've kind of changed a lot of my relationships recently.
Yep.
So I've stopped I've stopped pandering to people who piss me off.
Okay, that's good.
So in my life, right, there have been many situations where I have felt that I had to give people some slack. Or because I'm working with people every day, I have to kowtow to them a little bit, which is completely a juxtaposition from my own bullishness. Mm. And the reason this was allowed was because I was overcompensating for my past. Ah. So I let people who were just there to take what they could from me rule how I acted and what I did, because I thought they were acting properly and I was the problem.
Wow, that's quite profound.
Yeah. And I thought that we should talk about relationships because obviously we've all had different relationships in the past, but I'm not just talking about girlfriend, boyfriend, fridge, whatever we're talking about these days, right? What I'm talking about is a relationship isn't just a love thing, a hate thing, a friendship thing. A relationship can be people who don't know each other at all working in conjunction for the same goal.
Yeah.
That's still a relationship.
Yeah. So
relationships are usually compartmentalized into a word I'm desperately searching for, which is either like romantic. There you go.
Ah, okay.
Ping. So it's either a romantic relationship or it is a friendship. But people that you interact with, they're not seem to be important enough to have a relationship moniker, this relationship is a business relationship. But normally if it's a working relationship, it's somebody that you see all the time. Mm. And I'm starting to realise that whoever you interact with on a day-to-day basis, yeah, be that if you're searching to go in one direction or if you're searching to achieve a goal,
yep,
you need to have relationships with people that can facilitate what you need.
Yeah.
And a lot of people would say that's using people, would they not?
They might do. I wouldn't.
I would say it's facilitating relationship.
Yeah. Generally for mutual benefit.
Yeah, and I honestly have no idea where I'm going with this.
Okay.
Right, but I wanted to just clarify in my own mind that when you say relationship, you just assume you're talking about your significant other or your family or your friends. Am I wrong about that?
I don't know. I don't see it that way. I see relationships as, I see communication, lack of communication being a fundamental problem in most things, certainly at work.
Yeah.
And if you consciously do what I consciously do and forge relationships, and I would use that word, with the people that you deal with, you all mutually benefit.
Right, explain to me what you mean, right, by forging a relationship.
Right, so the way where I work, the industry that I work in, I work with the software house. They supply software to customers. Those customers have users. Mm-hmm. And I work for a couple of customers, work for the software house as well. But basically, some of those users will raise a problem with the software. Okay?
Yep.
The problem that we have, I think, as an industry, is that person raises a support ticket on a support system without talking to anyone. That gets passed to someone who doesn't interpret it very well. Then that gets passed on to the software house. They don't interpret it very well. And it goes through this kind of Chinese whispers process of no one actually communicating with each other.
So therefore the problem never gets fixed.
So the problem never gets fixed, yeah. And following on from that, because the problem doesn't get fixed, it gets escalated up to senior people at the customer who talk to senior people at the software house. And they're talking to each other and they're both saying, can't we just fix it? Can't we just fix it? Can't it just be fixed? And no one actually has defined what the it is. Right?
Okay, so by communicating on 5 different levels before it gets to somebody who can fix it, Nobody actually by that stage knows what it is.
So in those scenarios, the senior person, depending which company I'm working for, will come to me and go, "Can we just fix this?" And I go, "Well, what's the problem?" Well, it's the problem. It's the problem with the whatever. So that's one area where the lack of communication, the lack of two-way communication, causes a significant problem, and there's a lot of time wasted over that. The other part of it, which is the bit that I consciously do and didn't realise I did this until quite recently, is that with one of those companies that I work for, we have specific calls with specific groups of people, specific contracts, that are there not to bypass the official process of raising a ticket, but they're there to say, okay, you know, if you're not getting communication, you can sort of escalate it through us, right? So every 2 weeks with 2 different contracts, we have an hour's call where they can drop in and go, raised this ticket last week, I'm not getting anywhere with it, blah, 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 blah. Or, I was thinking of raising a ticket, I'm not quite sure, can you just clarify this stuff? And a lot of the time on those calls, we're not even talking directly about the software, but we build the relationship with the people and we have a bit of a laugh about stuff, right? And then they trust you, right? Because you've opened up to them a little bit and you talk a little bit about the football or whatever. So
you literally build a relationship.
So you build that relationship so that then they don't ultimately then go, oh, this software's a pile of crap, which most people do because they'll always blame the system.
They blame the system.
They'll come and ask a question and then you find that those people actually then start to argue with other people going, no, it's not crap. It's what we're doing is crap. I've had a chat with them and I understand how it's supposed to work. We're not doing that or whatever. Yeah. So those calls, despite the fact that some people might see them as a waste of time, you're building a communication chain or whatever.
Well, you're facilitating the problem-solving process by people.
Yeah, and I think if we all did that a bit more regularly in work, and we didn't continually have meetings, particularly these days with Microsoft Teams, and you've got a call with 20 people on it, 20 different opinions. You know, if you have the right people in the room talking openly about stuff, you're in my industry, you won't necessarily fix the problem on that call.
Yeah. But
you'll all get a bit more of an understanding where you're coming from, and you won't be butting heads all the time about the software costs too much or it's rubbish or whatever.
Okay, so it's not just, I don't see that as just your industry, but it's really useful to have the way that you use relationships to forge a communication chain.
Yeah.
There are 2 burning questions. One, why don't the tickets go to the person who deals with it? Like, who can fix it? Someone raises a ticket, where's it go?
Well, in that particular case, so a user will raise a ticket with the IT department of the company.
Yeah.
They may or may not be able to resolve it. If they can't, they'll then the initial IT team will then move it into a team that is supposed to specialise in the software in that customer of the software house.
Yeah.
They might not better know, because a lot of the problem is that people that work on service desks are incentivised to close tickets. They're not incentivised to learn the software, right? So the quicker they can get rid of the user and close the ticket, the better.
Wait, now bearing in mind I don't know your world, so you're telling me they hire 3 sets of hands before it can get to you, who is the software?
Yeah, so from a user experiencing a problem in the first place, they can raise it with a service desk. That will be processed by a second person who'll pass it to a team who may or may not progress it. If they don't progress it, they'll then pass it to the software house. It can then go through 2 or 3 people at the software house before it finally comes to me.
Isn't that just jobs for the boys bullshit?
It's recognised in some circles that it's a huge waste of time and money.
Yeah.
But it's the way life has become, right? You can't ring up a service desk anymore and say, I've got a problem with the whatever. You've got to raise a ticket.
Oh.
It's the same in most of the companies I
yeah,
deal
no,
with.
I mean, I don't move in your world, so I don't know what
part of that is what's the word I'm looking for? Liability is the best thing I can think of at this point. So if you don't have a ticket number, you've got no way of saying, well, I rang you last week, where's the blah, blah, blah.
So also, then everyone can play the blame game. So no one's actually looking for solutions. They're looking for passing the buck.
They're incentivised, as I say, to get rid of that ticket as quick as you can.
Great. Have you tried turning it off and turning it on again?
Well, there's all that stuff. So when I worked when I worked as a developer for a software house, they actually made a decision that the top guy, who was an absolute genius, they put him on the help desk.
Right.
Right. So he would, instead of waiting for it to go through that process of 2 or 3 people before it finally hit him because no one understood it, he was on the help desk. And within about 6 months, they had very little outstanding tickets on their support desk because back in the day, I guess they may have even raised them on the phone. But here we go. Oh, that's just because you need to do this. Boom. Thanks. Bye.
Yeah.
Because he's the one that had all the knowledge. Right? There's not enough people that have got the knowledge anymore. They've just a person that's got experience of working on a service desk, so therefore they're unemployable. They've got the skill set required, but they don't have the knowledge.
But they've got the skill set to pass it on to qualified ticket. Anyway, that's it.
Anyway,
right. Yeah, I've gone down a rabbit hole.
You have a little.
I think if you look at relationships, right, so what you're telling me is that relationships in this, right, they're not shallow or anything, but they are a tool to get things done better, to help you, to help your clients, to help them. So therefore, this level of relationship, while not being overly personal, but you give a little bit of yourself into this relationship, therefore you can, grease the wheels, as it were.
Yeah, it's very much like, we've both done the same foundation course in counselling skills.
Yeah.
It's about building trust.
Yep.
Right? So you open up enough so that the person trusts you.
What?
And that's fundamental to communication, to being open about stuff.
Yeah. So I think I was heading towards this, and we've got there quite quickly, which is good. Trust. Without trust, there is no relationship.
No.
So if you're married, right, and one person doesn't trust the other, you're fucked.
Yep.
It's never going to work.
Nope.
Right? And, I understand that level, right? Secondly, if you don't work at a relationship at any level, it will soon not be a relationship.
Yep.
Everyone assumes that once you're married and you've got that bit of paper, right, you will then walk down Happy Street when they first start out as married. What I didn't know, and my wife won't mind me saying this, is that we had to work out our own bullshit. We had to work out how to communicate because we didn't know. I'm me. I'm going to do whatever I want, whenever I want. You're going to toe the line, and that's that. She is thinking, I'm going to do whatever I want, whenever I want. And that fucker's going to toe the line because now I'm the wife.
Yeah.
And we're both thinking the same thing. We're clashing heads. We're doing all that. So we went to mediation with some hippie geezer with it's really annoying, like leather necklace, which was a polished piece of stone, right?
Nice.
And then whenever you said something, which by you I mean whenever I said something he found contentious, which was every 3.5 minutes, he would reach for his necklace like it was God himself and then pontificate on my problems. And each time he did this, I would say, do you actually know me then? Do you know who I am? Or are you giving me prescribed responses? Because he at no point tried to form a relationship, tried to make me trust him and believe in his abilities to help my wife and I. My wife stormed out of one because it looked like we'd ganged up on her when we hadn't, but he facilitated that. Right? We both walked out. When I went and found her, I said, should we deal with this ourselves? Because this bloke's a dick. Now, he may well have been a dick in real life, right? But bless him, he, in his head, thought he had the answers because he had read a textbook and his prescribed responses weren't enough to form any kind of relationship between me and her, between us and him, between him and us. He obviously thought I was some twat gangster who was more enamoured with my own ego than I was.
So he did know you?
Yeah, so he did know. No, but, in those days, I was backpedaling more than I was moving forwards. I was no longer the person who had to prove to everyone in the world that I was the biggest, the strongest, take the most drugs, drink the most drink, fall over the most spectacularly. I was no longer that human being because by the time I met my wife, I was clean. And I think it just annoyed me that relationship was seen as trivial enough by a professional that they could just give me this textbook prescribed response.
Sounds like he needs to do the counselling course, doesn't it?
I would say he needs level 4 at least right? Which is
You think they'd have that
marriage
that role,
counsellor.
wouldn't
Nah. Level 2, and then advocacy and safeguarding. So all he was worried about was the one incidence of violence that we both spoke about. Now, let me quantify violence. I picked up the dog bowl. Yeah, there is a sofa in between me and the lady in question. And I got pissed off and I threw the dog bowl at the bottom of the sofa, right? Misguided, but I did not throw it at anyone's head, then throw them out of a window. Which, to be brutally honest, in the olden days, would have happened.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then, that was blown out of, well, that one violent act has, defined you. And it's like, okay, fine, right. So now I'm violent because of that. Well, I think you're downplaying it because to your own ends. And I'm like, oh, you're a fucking twat. But then by saying that, he perpetuates the feelings in me.
Well, it's inflamed the situation, isn't it?
But now, you see, then the actual counsellor in the room will say, yeah, but that means you have latent violent tendencies and you're reacting to him with violence and anger. And then I will say, yes, but I wouldn't act on that.
Yeah.
And then there'll be this row about and it would sidetrack off. Now, you and I both know through the slight experiences that we have that when people come to you with problems, the most effective way of dealing with those problems is by not dealing with them at all, just fucking listening to people.
Yeah.
So, Coffee and Coping, the charity that we run, we sit there and listen to people sometimes, yeah? And so, you are a person who hasn't spoken to somebody else, another human being, for a week. You go to these drop-ins,
Yep.
yeah, and you just talk. And it takes people a little while to do that, apart from Jill, bless her, who just talks. But I spoke to her today, and then on the telephone, I'm pointing at the telephone.
Yes, I understand what that is.
Yeah. Have you got one of
It's a
those?
modern contraption.
Yes, it's a modern contraption. But and so just by that communication, just going, "You're right," and then she can go no or yes or whatever. That facilitates people to be able to think about themselves. So actually, in all relationships, you have to be selfish enough to draw a line about how much you want to give.
Yep.
Because if you are completely open and completely unguarded, yeah, in any other relationship than your wife or your significant other, you are going to come unstuck at some point. Because human beings are self-serving.
Yeah, so someone will take advantage of that.
Someone takes advantage. Now, presumably, you and Nikki, you are married and you've second time for you, and it seems from an outsider's point of view pretty cool. You're both ridiculously sporty, which is obviously disgusting. But what you actually do is seem to facilitate each other.
Yeah, we do, but we still have our
Mate,
times.
if you didn't, you wouldn't be human.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to just be woken up to what you're doing, and we've had a chat recently where work was taking over my life and made me miserable, and I've changed as a result of the conversation, an open, honest conversation that wasn't taken as a you're just criticising me. I've changed my approach, and I think I'm less ratty and stroppy and stuff.
No, not really.
Probably not, but trying.
Why do you trust her? No, I've just answered my own question. Why do you take that from her? Why do you open yourself up?
Yeah, because there is mutual
trust. Because
trust.
you trust her. You know she's not going to say something just to piss you off.
Yeah.
Right? And having that's amazing. That's an amazing relationship. Right? Even if you end up butting heads, by the time you both calm down, because, there's going to be anger, there's going to be that, you can sort it because you trust each other to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And trust is the only thing that matters.
Yeah.
To a point. Well, no, not even to a point.
I think certainly in a couple's relationship, it is the ultimate.
Right. So when you move from a couple's relationship, good wording, like it, down to friendship, right? I have very few friends these days in my circle that I can trust with, my life. Let's be melodramatic.
Let's do that.
Right. One of which is you.
Okay.
One of which is him behind camera, which is George. One of which is Sean. Right. There are other people who I trust, but I am unguarded with you three. because I know that, one, if I'm being a dick, someone will tell me, right? Because, you know, that's the way it is. If I'm not being a dick and I'm doing the right thing, but I see that I think I'm being a dick, you'll tell me. You know, all of these fucking, you know, that's the thing. But as you get older, those connections get less and less.
Yeah.
Because you realise that a lot of your friends aren't your friends.
Yeah, do they get less and less though, or do you actually start to work out which ones are that and which ones
That's
weren't?
why it gets less and less.
Yeah.
Because you're not friends with these people, they're using you. Right, I am not saying, right, that if you have a big social group, then, you know, you're obviously being lied to, right? That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is, and I am 51 years old, so I've lived on the planet for that long. I can tell you now, there are certain people in this world that I can name, which I won't, that have just used their position with me to get what they wanted.
Yeah.
And you know what? You can't even hate them for that, because you went along with it.
Yeah.
And it served you, it served, if it's a two-way street and you know that you're each serving a purpose, then that's just a valuable friendship as one with that. But the trust is not as full and encompassing.
No, but if there's mutual benefit there, then
Fuck it, do it. So, you know, how do you guard against being taken advantage of? Being, you know, I'm a big, strong, arrogant. Sometimes, no, I don't want to. I'm not arrogant. I'm a big, strong, forceful human being.
confident, I would say.
Confident.
Rather than
There's the word. Right. So, I've been taken for a lemon on a few occasions. You know, because I used to be looking for something that isn't possible in all directions, i.e. like a brotherhood, a group of people to be with that think like me. It's not possible.
No, and you tend to find, I think, as you get older, that the closest friends aren't the ones that think like you. They're the ones that maybe challenge you a bit and
Push
and
against
give
you
a different angle. A reframing,
The ones, right,
maybe.
reframing. Wait a minute, didn't we?
Yeah, I think we did.
Oh, right. So, when you get somebody, though, who comes up to you and says, I'm just telling you the truth. I'm telling you like it how it is. I'm like, no, you're selling it from your own narrative to tell me how I should run my life, because you only tell the truth. Truth is also subjective.
Absolutely.
So what might be your truth might not be mine.
No.
George might have a completely fabricated truth that he's comfortable with. So it has become truth. I mean, you know,
George is truth, isn't he?
George is truth. He is. He's doing Jesus actions behind the camera. It's funny, isn't it? How we started talking about relationships and now we're talking about trust. So that means that's where you're at.
Yeah. Fundamental to all good things. Really.
What happens, right, when there's a loss of trust? Can you regain trust, do you think?
Ooh. Yeah, I think you can. I think there is room for.
If somebody hurts you, you will never be as open with them ever again, even if you pay lip service to the fact you are.
Yeah, I must admit, there's a lot of kind of self-help books that talk about forgiveness and stuff, and I still struggle with that.
I don't struggle with forgiveness anymore, because I struggle with, maybe it isn't forgiveness, I struggle with settling that betrayal in my own mind.
Yeah, I think I end up just sort of cutting it off rather than necessarily forgiving it. I think I don't know really where the line is between forgive and forget, really. I think it's just...
I don't think there is forgive and forget, because if you do forget, you're a mug.
Yeah.
Because you'll fall for the same thing again and again and again.
Yeah, so I think maybe the definition of forgiveness is to stop letting it eat away at you, sort of thing. There's no need to be angry about it anymore.
No.
I think I'm at that level with various people in my...
It doesn't raise your emotions to the point where you can't stop yourself.
Yeah, when I went through my period of counselling, it was mentioned on a regular basis that the opposite of love isn't hate. And the opposite of love is indifference. Right, so you're not inflamed by it anymore. It's just like, whatever. And I think when people inflame you, there's still some emotion involved. And if you can be indifferent to it and take that emotion out and go, well, they don't affect my life anymore.
I would go a bit further than that, because you know that you say love and hate are on the same level. They're not opposites.
No.
As you're right, indifference is the opposite of love. It is also the opposite of hate.
Yeah, I guess.
Because it's a beta blocker. You've drawn a fucking line.
Yeah.
And gone, right, there is a difference. Paying lip service to the fact that it doesn't anger you anymore.
Yeah.
And actually having peace with something. And I think I've genuinely gone past the point. Because there are certain people in this world that are quite happily shoot in the face. Right? And that's not a joke. I mean that. Right? But I think by becoming older, looking at my own mental health, looking at my own ability to cut off people without suffering myself. So people don't live in my brain rent-free anymore. That's the thing you've got to realise. All these people, they don't give a shit about you or what you think.
No, it comes back to something that we've covered before, doesn't it? That there's no point worrying about things you can't control and all that. It's all...
We've covered everything before.
Yeah, but these things all cross over, don't they?
Yeah.
And that's what we find. The more we talk about a specific topic, you still come back to some veins that run through these topics.
How can we link community with this topic? Because I'll tell you this now, relationships goes hand in hand with community.
Yeah, it does. Because so the reason that that you don't talk, well, I don't talk to my neighbour, is because that relationship hasn't been built, so there's no trust there.
No.
We've said many times in recent months and weeks and months, our next door neighbours have got 2 dogs and at least 2 cats, possibly 3 cats.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that they've gone on holiday at times for 2 or 3 days. And we don't believe any, and they've left all the animals in the house, right? We don't believe anyone's been in, right? There's a bit of a row about it, and we had people coming in. Well, we've got security cameras on the outside of the house. We know when people drive in the driveway.
I'm watching you,
and no one came in, right? But if maybe we hadn't started off on the wrong foot with them, I dog sit for people. I walk my neighbour's dog twice a week. They could go away, and I could live in their house for the time they're away and look after all their animals for them, and it would be a mutually beneficial relationship.
What if I said to you, right, that it's none of your business what they do with their things? What would you say to that?
In terms of animal welfare, it is my business.
Right, exactly. Right, so me saying that means that if you just facilitate a conversation between you and your neighbours when they move in, right, and I think that's on the new neighbours to go, look, I've just moved in, hello. Right? Or, American thing about bringing a casserole.
Yeah.
Right? One, Americans have no idea what a casserole actually is. Casserole, right, has got chicken or beef or lamb or sausages with a sauce with onions and vegetables.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not got a bloody rice thing with just and frankfurters in it, right? Fucking Americans. Now listen, any American, right, who's watching, and I'm genuinely serious, can you please write down what you think a casserole is? Right? And then we can become friends and I can trust you if I believe what you think a casserole is. It's that, right, that's a puerile thing and I've made comedy, but it's true.
Yeah. So just without making it all about me, this episode, so when they moved in next door to us...
But you are now going to make it about
I'm going to,
Yeah, okay.
It's about time, isn't it?
Just, yeah. I mean, it's all been about me for the last 4 seasons.
So when they moved in, the day after they moved in,
yeah,
they had a kids' party in their back garden for what seemed like hours. Bouncy castle, cars parked all over the drive, couldn't get in and out the drive, no notice of it, no, we just moved in, but we're going to a party, if you want to pop over for a drink.
That's rude, though.
Right, so they didn't do that.
Right.
And there's been various incidents like that. So there's always been like that relationship was inflamed from the start because from our perspective, they seem to be kind of impolite and inconsiderate. Okay.
Yep.
Conversely, don't know if I told you this previously, but a guy moved in opposite us last weekend before.
Yeah.
And I could see him attempting to get his sofa in through his porch and getting angry with it. And I went over and said, "Do you need a hand?" And then spent a couple of hours with him, cutting his sofa to pieces, putting it back together again, helping him sort out his Sky, lent him a DVD player.
Right.
And I think now, and I said to him, "Look, if you need anything,
that's where I live.
I'm over there." And he went, "Mate, I don't know how to thank you." And I went, "You don't need to thank me. You just need to just
say hello.
Be nice to someone else.
Yeah.
But if you need anything, let me know."
Right.
And that's the 2 different ways, isn't it, of starting that neighbour relationship.
Yeah, and also, I hate to use the word proof, but just by going over there saying hello, do you need a hand? You have proved to him on some level that you're helpful and dependable and actually nice, right? And you don't have to prove anything, but what you did do is help someone who needed help, right? And everyone poo-poos that. Well, you're all just do-gooders. No, man, he couldn't get the sofa through the door, and I'm strong enough to pick it up, or in your case, chop it up, which sounds a bit weird. But yeah, I mean, you know, it's amazing the negativity that is put into small things like
What's in it for you?
relationships, community. What's in it for me? Why should I help you?
Yeah.
Well, because you're a human being.
Yeah, maybe one day, right? I'll be the one that's getting angry about something in the front garden. He'll pop over. Hello, mate. Did you want to hammer that? Shall I help you lift that in? Whatever. You know?
It won't be you that gets angry with it.
Well, maybe.
That's a private joke, and I'm not explaining it. So, when you are at grass level and you move into a new area, right? Go and visit your neighbours, right? Because they genuinely want to know who you are. Now, that might be two reasons. One, they're a curtain switcher who need to know it all. Or two, they're actually really nice people who could help you out and you could help each other out. Yeah. You know why I have a real problem with babysitting, right? Samuel is now 10, right? And I ain't leaving him anywhere, right, with anyone I don't trust. So luckily your daughter's just stepped in the frame, which is nice. Yeah. But I've abused my position as her, you know, she's the apprentice at tattoo shop. So I've gone, wait, do my job. No,
I am your godfather. You do also.
I did not say that. I asked her and she said yes. Now, table wobble. The point of all this is that when we moved into the place we moved into, we knew everyone, right? Because I made sure of it. But then over time, everyone's changed and they're transient, they're different people. And now the woman next door has made it very clear that she wants to live her life by her rules. Now, that's fine, but I know where I stand. I don't dislike her. Yeah. I think some of her decisions are a little misguided, especially cutting down a really rare chestnut tree, which pissed me off. But there we are. But, you know, I'm not emotionally invested with the relationship in any way, negative or positive, with her. Yep. I say hello, she says hello. That's all we need, right? But also, I do know that if my house was on fire or something bad had happened, I could grab my family, knock on the door and go, look, help. And she would help. Because I didn't just ignore her. I didn't just say, oh, dude, fucking hell, who are you? Yep. Right? The people on the other side, they're a couple, they're very insular, they're older and they don't trust anyone. But every morning when I see that woman, I say hello. And she goes, hello, all right? And that's it. Right? Now, but I don't know if my house was burning, I could go next door, but I wouldn't be afraid to ask. Yeah. Right? I'm lucky because I am gregarious and I will speak to anyone. If you're not that confident and you live in a street where people change, you've got no ability to formulate. No.
And then you potentially get seen as the standoffish, insular.
When forming relationships, when you move into new places, you have to remember that not everyone has the ability to communicate on an easygoing level. Yeah. They may genuinely be frightened. And I am experiencing more and more people who live in fear for many different reasons. I was talking to a guy who comes to the drop-ins today, and he said, you know what? This guy's 22 and he went to school with my daughter. And I asked him what he was doing for his birthday. And he said, I'm not doing anything. I don't go out. Everything's too dangerous. I'll get stabbed in Hertford. I'll get, if you're a man, you'll end up fighting or it's bad. And I'm like, oh God. Well, he said, no, I don't go out. He was shocked that someone
you suggested.
Well, no, the guy suggested that he would go out on the Raz on his birthday. I remember my 22nd. Well, I remember the beginning of my 22nd birthday. It went on for a fucking week. What astounds me as well, and then this guy went to his own daughter and said, "Oh, you know this guy, you do," and she went, "I don't want to go out either. I'd much rather stay and sit in my room. I can talk to my friends on my phone and all that. Why the hell are we surprised that everyone is insular and lonely when 2 generations underneath us are all saying, I don't want to go out. It's scary out there. There's violence, right? I'm used to violence. Yeah, I'm used to it. I don't have a problem with being confronted with that. But if you've never seen violence before, if my child is offered violence on the street, he can't deal with that.
No.
And why the fuck should he age 10? You know what I mean? 10-year-olds are getting robbed. You know, they're like, these parents who keep giving 10-year-olds phones. Sort your life out. My son does not have a phone, right? He also, you know, he's got a bit of pocket money here and there, but he keeps that at home because it's safe and he knows not to leave it in his pocket and run about. You know, and it's... So I'm not the best person to talk about, you know, the encroaching in violence because I'm quite blasé about it. But I know people who are terrified to leave their houses just in case there's a fight.
And I wonder whether it is worse or whether it's just more publicised via social media and everything else that makes people think.
I said these words earlier. The world has always been a shit place. Yeah. But now we all just know about it. Now, you didn't have gangs of kids coming off a train with machetes before and doing all that. You didn't have American gang culture in England. You do now. You got bloody trainers hanging off the telephone lines to show you where their turf is. Yeah. I also had a gang approach me in Woodall outside the Co-op of all places, and he steps in front of me and he said, "There's a charge to get in the Co-op," and I went, "Is there? How much are you paying me then?" Right, and this Billy Big Bollocks shit himself. Because I stepped forwards, I didn't step backwards. But you're 80 years old, you're carrying your shopping bag and you happen to be female. You do, and they were doing that. That's why I did what I did. And I thought, if you're going to pull a machete, I'm going to be quite annoyed with myself. But I'll deal with it. Right, he didn't. He stepped back away because I challenged him and he realised that I didn't care. You know, why should people have to deal with that level of violence? Also, they were there for at least 2 hours because when I came back, they were still there. So where's the police that we trust to do all that? Oh no, sorry, we sacked most of the police force because we didn't have any money. How have you not got any money? Because we're all paying more into that little kitty than ever before. Oh, that's right, all your councils are going bust, aren't they? All of the things because of misappropriation of funds for so long, you can't do that. So the relationship, with the police is non-existent. Yep. Because you don't see them. The only time you see the police is when you're driving your car too fast on the motorway. Yeah, so it's an easy crime to solve. Yeah, and also if you hit somebody at 90 miles an hour, they're fucking dead, and so are you. So don't, try not to do that. Thanks. So how can you rebuild a society that's lost its relationship and trust in two things? In God, because organised religion has taken a way big dip, and societal values like the police.
Yeah, I honestly don't know the answer.
I don't either.
Other than what we come back to is attempting to rebuild community by just saying good morning.
So how about this? You take away, and I'm not being subversive, I'm putting out an idea. How about we go back to smaller groups, no organised government? Yeah, okay, you have to have a monetary system on this level. But as they have removed all of our, as a country's ability to make things, put things together, supply people with metal, all of that. British Steel doesn't exist anymore. It's all bought in from different places. If you rob a country of all of its assets, and then I wonder why society breaks down, why are you in control of anything?
Well, there is no respect for authority anymore, is there?
No. And the sad thing about that is, should we enter into a dystopian nightmare where there is no protection, there is no police, then what happens is the strongest rise to the top. So, we all laugh at Mad Max and, the originals and all them bikers riding around with their hairdressers on. The reason that they can do that and they've got the petrol and they're the ones doing it is because they don't give a shit about anyone's values and will do whatever they want whenever they want until somebody harder than them shoots them.
Yeah, all of those dystopian films just seem more and more... I think when we were kids, it was like, haha, look at that, it's Hollywood. But I think now more and more people see, Hunger Games, I could see that happening.
Yeah. Also, How about this? It has been suggested to me within the last 24 hours that there is a controlling government that is in charge of filmmaking, right?
Yeah.
Who owns Hollywood. How about that? Right? And this is a bit of a theory, as you would call it.
Mm-hmm.
But what happens if they've been making these ridiculous stories that couldn't possibly happen from actual events? Because that way you make it entertainment so no one would ever believe it.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore you have a relationship with media, with films,
Yeah.
that dramatizes narratives that are actually happening, because we know that the CIA is controlling drug cartels, and every time one of them gets too powerful, they then strip their power away by executing whoever and giving money to the smaller one because they can control it for a little while, and it goes in a cycle. We know that to be true. You know, the war on drugs isn't a war. We're being slaughtered, you know, metaphorically speaking, because there is no war on drugs. The intake of drugs in this country is huge. We are one of the largest buying countries for cocaine and heroin. We're one of the smallest bloody countries too. What does that tell you? I think relationships on a small level is the only way we are ever going to get any kind of peace moving forward.
Yeah.
So community, helping people who live near you, talking to them. You don't have to do everything anyone asks of you. You're quite able just to say, look, I really can't do that at the moment. I can't do this. But look, next time you need help, please feel free to ask. Right? Because you're not beholden.
No.
They're not a burden. They are people that could genuinely help you when you need it, so you help them too. It's a two-way street.
Yeah.
There will be people who abuse that.
Yeah, but you find that out pretty quickly.
But it builds trust. And if you can have a local community that is founded on trust, and yeah, when people abuse it, they get booted out of that community. You're no longer welcome.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I think that's the only way in future we can find a way that society can move forward as a whole.
Yeah.
And it's not divisive, right? It's not divisive. It's not separate. We can all be friends with the people next door, but they don't control what we do. And it doesn't have to be about we're the biggest community, we're all. It's like, no, we've got community boundaries. We do this, we do that. This is not about combat. This is about living. And also the word harmoniously. When did you last hear that about anyone living?
Yeah, not a lot.
15 coping. Relationships are important. So what needs to happen is speak to the people around you, find out who you can get on with. You won't get on with everyone. If you can help somebody or just say good morning, we'll go back to that. Start some kind of dialogue with the people around you, because the more people you know and you interact with, the less barriers and more trust is built. We'll see you next time.